True respect is earned in silence, in the places where you don't try to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it. When you choose not to fight for someone who wants to leave, you demonstrate a profound understanding of your own value. You understand that pleading for love is a transaction that cheapens the very thing you hope to secure. You see, there's a difference between loving someone and needing them to validate you. When you refuse to fight for someone who's walking away, you're saying, I don't need you to see my value for it to exist. That's the essence of self-worth. It's not arrogance, it's not pride. It's the unshakable awareness that you are enough as you are, without needing to convince anyone. It is the quiet conviction that you don't have to prove yourself to someone who can't recognize your truth. Most people misunderstand this. They think if they don't fight, they'll lose what matters most. But the truth is, anything that can be lost by standing in your own worth wasn't truly secure in the first place. When you argue, beg, chase, or cry for someone to stay, you show them you're willing to abandon your own dignity to keep them. That doesn't inspire love or loyalty. It inspires pity, control, and eventually contempt. Because deep down, people don't respect what's too easy to get, too desperate to hold on, too willing to sacrifice self-respect for validation. It's the law of human nature. We value what is rare, what stands firm, what knows its own worth. When you don't fight for someone, you demonstrate to them and to yourself that you're not dependent on their choice for your happiness. You're not putting your emotional well-being in their hands. You're not handing over the keys to your self-worth. You're showing them you're whole on your own. That's power. That's magnetic. Because most people can't do it. Most people live in fear of abandonment. They see someone pulling away and they panic. They think, if I don't convince them to stay, I'll lose them forever. But they miss the truth that the more they try to hold on, the more they push them away. The more they fight, the more they reveal their own insecurity. And insecurity repels. It suffocates. It kills attraction and respect. Self-worth, on the other hand, is silent power. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. It says, if you want to go, I won't stop you. Because I know who I am and I know what I deserve. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about knowing you'll be fine even if they leave. It's about refusing to negotiate with someone who doesn't see your value. It's about knowing the right person won't need convincing. The right person will recognize your worth without being begged to see it. When you don't fight for someone who's leaving, you also communicate something else incredibly important. You respect their choice. You're not trying to control them. You're not manipulating them to stay. You're not using guilt, fear, or obligation to hold them close. That level of freedom is attractive. It's disarming. It's rare. Because in a world where so many people try to hold on through force or fear, letting go without resistance shows emotional maturity. It shows you understand that love must be chosen freely. To be real, anything else is bondage. This approach doesn't just affect them. It transforms you. It frees you from the need to perform for approval. It releases you from the endless cycle of chasing validation. It teaches you to be enough for yourself first. And that's when you become unshakable. When you're no longer terrified of someone leaving you, you're free to love without fear. You're free to give without expectation. You're free to walk away when your standards aren't met, knowing you're not losing something essential. Because what's essential can't be taken away by someone's choice to leave. There's also a deep wisdom in recognizing that fighting for someone doesn't actually secure them. If anything, it drives them further away because it gives them all the power. It tells them you'll accept anything, that your standards are flexible, that you're willing to trade your self-respect for their presence. And once they know that, they stop valuing you. But when you let them go, when you stand calmly in your own power, you flip the dynamic completely. They see you're not desperate. They see you won't fight to keep someone who doesn't want to stay, and that unsettles them. It forces them to reconsider what they're walking away from. Because you didn't beg, you didn't lower yourself, you simply let them choose. And that freedom is often what brings people back, not because you manipulated them, but because you refused to. But even if they don't come back, you win. Because you kept your self-respect. You didn't make a spectacle of your pain. You didn't hand over your dignity for the chance to convince them. You taught yourself that you can survive loss, that you can face rejection and remain whole, that you don't need to fight for someone's love to be worthy of it. And that lesson is priceless because it changes the way you see yourself forever. It makes you someone who doesn't settle, who doesn't chase, who doesn't crumble when faced with someone's absence, who knows their own worth even when it's not being recognized. And that is the kind of person who commands respect, not just from others, but from themselves. Detachment is often misunderstood as coldness or apathy, but in truth, it is a profound form of confidence. It is the art of holding space for love without clutching at it. When you choose not to fight for someone who's leaving, you are not proving you don't care. You are proving that you trust yourself enough to let go. You are demonstrating that your sense of worth does not crumble in the face of rejection. This isn't about being stoic to the point of numbness. It's about emotional mastery. It's about knowing your feelings intimately, yet refusing to let them dictate your behavior in destructive ways. It's easy to react when someone withdraws. It's easy to beg, to plead, to try to reason with them, to try to show them all the reasons they should stay. But that is fear masquerading as love. That is insecurity pretending to be devotion. Real confidence knows that if someone can leave you, then they should. Not out of spite or arrogance, but because you refuse to hold hostage what doesn't want to stay. You want someone who chooses you freely, who sees your value without you needing to put on a performance, who understands your worth because they too know their own. Detachment is allowing them to make that choice without your interference. It is trusting that if they are meant for you, nothing will keep them away. And if they're not, nothing you do will make them stay. This mindset liberates you from the exhausting, soul-depleting cycle of trying to control what is beyond your control. When you practice detachment, you cultivate inner stability. You don't collapse at the first sign of trouble. You don't make someone else responsible for your emotional safety. You hold yourself upright. You regulate your own emotions. You soothe your own wounds. This doesn't mean you don't hurt when they go. Of course it hurts. But you let the pain flow through you without trying to manipulate it away. You don't use drama or threats or tears as currency to buy their affection. You simply accept reality as it is. That acceptance is the heart of confidence, because you believe in your own ability to survive it, to heal, to find love again if you choose. You trust life to bring you the right people when you're ready. You don't grasp at what is slipping away in terror that you'll never find it again. People sense this energy. It's magnetic. When you can let someone walk away without resistance, it forces them to see you differently. They may have expected you to collapse, to plead, to promise to change everything about yourself to keep them, but you don't. Instead, you stand in your own space, grieving if you must, but not collapsing. That quiet strength is unforgettable. It's rare, it's disarming, because it signals you don't need them. You want them, perhaps, but you don't need them to validate you. You don't need them to complete you. You don't need them to rescue you from your own loneliness. You are whole even in their absence. That is true emotional independence. That is the essence of detachment. Detachment is also freedom. For them and for you. When you don't try to force someone to stay, you give them the dignity of their own choice. You show them you're not trying to control them. You're not afraid of their freedom. This is deeply attractive because most people feel smothered by neediness. They want to feel free to choose. When you can say, if you want to go, go, you remove all resistance. You become the opposite of clingy, and ironically, that often makes them reconsider. People are drawn to what doesn't try to possess them. They're drawn to those who can walk away because it signals you have standards. It signals you have a spine. It signals you have options. And people respect options. But the most important part of detachment is what it does for you. It's not about making them respect you. It's about respecting yourself. It's refusing to betray your own boundaries just to keep someone in your life. It's saying, I will not sacrifice my dignity, my self-worth, or my peace just to avoid being alone. It's about facing your fear of abandonment and realizing it can't destroy you. You survive it. You grow through it. You become stronger because of it. You understand that loss is part of life, but losing yourself in the process is optional. Detachment is choosing yourself every single time. It's saying, I will love you if you stay. I will love myself if you go. It's an unbreakable promise to remain loyal to yourself even when others are not. This way of being transforms your relationships. You stop entering them from a place of fear or lack. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop clinging to people who don't see you. Instead, you invite those who recognize your value immediately, who don't need convincing, who choose you freely because they want to, not because you pressured them. You create space for love that is real, reciprocal, and healthy. Detachment isn't the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. It's knowing you can love deeply while holding loosely. It's knowing you can care without controlling. It's knowing you can give without losing yourself. And in the end, it's the most confident thing you can ever do. Scarcity creates value because it taps into one of the most fundamental truths about human nature. We don't truly appreciate what we can take for granted. When you refuse to fight for someone who's pulling away, you immediately signal that your presence is not a given. It's not something they can expect no matter how they treat you. You establish that you are not an unlimited resource, endlessly available regardless of their behavior. That scarcity doesn't make you cold or unloving. It makes you valuable. It's what creates intrigue, respect, and even longing. People are drawn to what they can't easily possess. They want what feels exclusive, what feels rare, what feels like it has standards and boundaries. Fighting for someone who wants to leave is the opposite of scarcity. It floods the relationship with neediness and availability. It says, I'll do anything to keep you. I'll lower my standards, compromise my dignity, and abandon my self-respect if it means you'll stay. That abundance of desperate energy kills attraction. It removes mystery. It eliminates respect. Because respect is born when someone sees that you won't allow yourself to be taken for granted. When you can calmly let them go, you create distance. That distance forces them to feel your absence. It forces them to consider your value in a new light because they're not sure anymore. They're not certain you'll always be there. They can no longer rely on your unconditional willingness to stay. People rarely realize what they have until it's no longer guaranteed. When you stop fighting, you remove the safety net they took for granted. Suddenly they have to face the possibility of losing you forever. That's when they start to evaluate what you meant to them. That's when they start replaying the good moments, the kindness, the laughter, the intimacy they dismissed so easily before. Because scarcity introduces risk, and risk introduces meaning. Without the possibility of loss, there is no real value. This is true in relationships, in business, in art, in everything that matters to human beings. When you hold back from chasing, you also create space for them to choose you freely. That freedom is a gift, even if they don't see it at first. It means their return is authentic. It's not forced by guilt or manipulation. It's not something you secured through pleading. It's a genuine decision born of realizing your worth on their own terms. And that is the only kind of loyalty that lasts. because they're not staying to rescue you from pain. They're staying because they see your value and want to be part of your life. Scarcity also means you know your energy is limited. You understand that your time, love, and attention are precious commodities. You don't give them away recklessly. You don't pour them into a broken container, hoping it will eventually hold what it cannot. By refusing to fight for someone who's leaving, you're demonstrating discernment. You're saying, I know what I offer is rare. If you don't want it, someone else will. That's not arrogance. It's clarity. It's the confidence that comes from knowing you're bringing something meaningful to the table. It's important to realize that creating scarcity isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about aligning your actions with your true value. If you know you're worthy of respect and love, you won't beg for it. You won't try to force it. You won't degrade yourself trying to convince someone who can't see it. You'll simply step back and allow them to experience life without you. That experience is often the most powerful teacher. Because while words can be ignored or dismissed, absence cannot. Silence cannot. Space cannot. It seeps into their awareness in ways that arguments never will. Most people don't understand this because they're terrified of what happens when they stop fighting. They're afraid it means letting go forever. But the truth is, letting go is the only way to see what's real. If someone truly values you, they'll find their way back. If they don't, you're better off without them. That clarity only comes when you're willing to risk the loss. That's the price of authenticity. That's the price of respect. Scarcity also protects your heart. It prevents you from wasting your love on someone who doesn't appreciate it. It ensures that you save your best self for someone who recognizes it without needing to be convinced. It preserves your dignity in the face of rejection. It turns what feels like failure into a filter, removing those who don't deserve a front row seat in your life. Instead of begging to be seen, you choose to be scarce, knowing that your absence will say what your words never could. And even if they never come back, scarcity means you remain true to yourself. You didn't sell your soul for their presence. You didn't sacrifice your standards for their approval. You didn't lose yourself trying to hold onto them. You remain someone who understands the value of their own heart, who knows that being rare is what makes you priceless. Because in the end, people don't respect what's always available. They respect what has the strength to walk away, to let go, to be scarce in a world that's too often desperate to be seen and chosen at any cost. Your energy is your most sacred currency, and how you spend it defines the quality of your life. Every time you beg for someone's love, attention, or commitment, you make an unconscious withdrawal from your emotional bank account. You give away parts of yourself in small, unnoticed ways until eventually you feel emotionally bankrupt. You can't pour into a connection that drains you, and you can't continue giving from a place that's constantly being depleted. When you decide not to fight for someone who chooses to leave, you are not giving up, you are preserving your power. You are protecting your emotional ecosystem from chaos, disrespect, and imbalance. You are saying, my peace matters more than convincing someone to stay. When you fight for someone who's not fighting for you, you abandon the sacredness of your own space. You begin to internalize the belief that your love must be proven, justified, and earned through suffering. You start associating love with struggle, with effort, with pain. But real love does not require you to exhaust yourself emotionally. It does not require you to show up again and again in spaces where you're not welcomed. By chasing, by pleading, by over-explaining, you teach your nervous system that love is instability, that peace must be sacrificed in order to be worthy of affection. And the longer you stay in that loop, the more distant you become from yourself. You forget how it feels to be full, centered, and whole on your own. Conserving your energy means recognizing that not every emotional battle is yours to fight. It means walking away, not because you don't care, but because you care too much about yourself to stay where you are not deeply respected. Your energy is like water. Whatever it touches, it nourishes. But water can't bloom a stone no matter how much you pour. Some people are emotionally unavailable, unhealed, or simply not aligned with the kind of love you offer. And trying to force connection in such places will only lead to resentment and self-doubt. That's why you must be selective. Not everyone deserves access to the deepest parts of you. Protecting your energy also means not engaging in emotional tug-of-war. When someone pulls back, it's natural to want to move closer. It's a survival instinct wired in the human brain to avoid rejection and abandonment. But that instinct can sabotage your growth. When you move closer while they move away, you're feeding a power imbalance. You're saying, my energy doesn't require balance. I'll give even if I don't receive. Over time, that pattern teaches the other person that your presence is constant even when they're inconsistent. It teaches them that you will remain emotionally invested even if they stop trying. And once that expectation is formed, your love becomes easy to abuse. True strength is saying no to that dynamic. It's stepping back when someone pulls away and allowing them the space to feel your absence. Not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Your energy is not a tool of persuasion. It's a reflection of your self-worth. You don't throw it into a black hole, hoping it will eventually be returned. You don't scatter it in places that prove repeatedly they can't hold it. You invest it where it is met, where it is appreciated, where it is reciprocated. That's what builds emotional security, not loud declarations or dramatic confrontations, but the quiet discipline of only showing up where you are seen and valued. And part of protecting your energy means being okay with silence, letting the unanswered message remain unanswered, letting the door close without pounding on it, letting the goodbye be final. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself more. It's a deep spiritual maturity to know when to stop talking, stop trying, stop explaining. It's not a loss, it's alignment. It's making peace with the fact that you're no longer willing to exhaust yourself in places where your worth is a question. You'd rather be alone with your energy intact than entangled with someone who doesn't know what to do with your soul. There's also something deeply transformative about reclaiming your energy after a painful experience. When you shift the focus away from the other person and turn it inward, you begin to rebuild. You nourish yourself in ways no one else can. You start to recognize your own patterns, heal your own wounds, and set new boundaries. You begin to attract different people, different experiences, because you've changed your energetic signature. You're no longer vibrating at the frequency of lack. You're vibrating from wholeness, from clarity, from self-respect. That's what draws in the people who won't ask you to fight for their love, because they already see your worth. The truth is, when you protect your energy, you protect your future. You set a standard for the kind of love and peace you are willing to receive. You make it clear that your soul is not available for emotional labor that is not mutual. That you will no longer participate in one-sided dynamics, even if your heart is still healing. You make your emotional boundaries known, not with bitterness, but with conviction. And in doing so, you free yourself from the need to prove anything to anyone. You let your presence speak for itself. You let your silence do the talking. You let your peace be the proof that you've outgrown the need to fight for anyone who cannot see you clearly. Letting them choose freely is one of the most powerful, mature, and liberating things you can do, even though it's also one of the hardest. When someone starts pulling away or questioning their place in your life, your instinct might be to fight harder, to hold on tighter, to convince them to stay by proving your worth. But doing so denies them the very thing that makes love meaningful: choice. Real love cannot be coerced, persuaded, or negotiated into being. It must be chosen freely, without pressure or guilt or manipulation. If someone doesn't actively choose you when given the freedom to leave, then they were never truly yours to begin with. When you let someone choose freely, even if it means choosing to walk away, you are respecting their autonomy and your own dignity. You're saying, I honor your right to make this decision even if it breaks my heart. That is strength. It's not weakness or giving up. It's an unspoken promise to hold love with an open hand rather than a clenched fist. A closed hand tries to trap love, to contain it, to own it. But love that is forced is not love at all. It's fear, it's possession, it's control. It's wanting them to stay for your own security rather than their genuine desire. By letting them choose freely, you refuse to manipulate the outcome. You don't use guilt trips about all you've done for them. You don't cry about how you'll be lost without them in a bid to make them feel responsible for your happiness. You don't threaten to disappear forever if they leave, hoping to spark fear in their hearts. You simply say, this is my love. It's here if you want it. But you are free to go if you don't. That level of emotional honesty is rare because most people are terrified of what will happen when they remove the pressure. They fear that given total freedom, the other person will leave. But that is precisely the point. If they would choose to leave, it is better to know now than to live a life pretending they want to stay. Letting them choose freely is a test of your own security. It requires you to face your fear of abandonment without running from it. It makes you confront your own need for validation, for reassurance that you're enough. Because when you remove the tactics and just let them choose, you expose the truth. Do they want you or don't they? And if the answer is no, it is painful, but it is clean pain. It is the kind of pain that heals because it is honest. It is far better than the dirty pain of holding on to someone who doesn't really want to be there, of constantly performing, convincing, or compromising just to avoid being alone. When you let them choose freely, you also create space for them to experience your value in your absence. As long as you're fighting for them, they never have to face what losing you really means. They never have to sit with the emptiness of your silence, the lack of your love, the coldness of your absence. They get to feel wanted without having to do the work of wanting you back. But when you step back and say, it's your choice, you shift the responsibility onto them. Now they must decide if you're worth the effort, the commitment, the loyalty. And if they decide you're not, then you know the truth without illusions. It is in that freedom that respect is born. Because you're showing them that you're not afraid to let them go. You're not dependent on their decision for your self-worth. You're not going to compromise your standards or your peace to keep them at your side unwillingly. You're saying, I want you, but I don't need you. I love you, but I love myself too much to force you. That stance is incredibly powerful. It is the opposite of desperation. It is the embodiment of self-respect. Freedom is also attractive because it's rare. Most people will try to hold on at any cost. They'll plead, bargain, and even humiliate themselves for another chance. When you don't do that, you stand out. You show a level of confidence and emotional independence that is magnetic. You're not offering them obligation, you're offering them choice. And choice is what gives love its value. No one wants to be forced to stay. Everyone wants to feel like they are wanted for who they are, not trapped because someone can't bear to let them go. And even beyond them, this approach frees you. It allows you to live in alignment with your values. It keeps you honest with yourself. You never have to wonder if they're only there because you made it too hard to leave. You don't have to wake up worrying that their heart is somewhere else while their body remains beside you out of guilt or fear of your reaction. Instead, you can trust that if they stay, it's because they want to, because they see your worth without being forced to, because they freely choose you over all other options. That is the kind of love worth having. It is reciprocal, honest, and real. It is born from freedom, not obligation, and it is only possible when you're brave enough to let them go. To stand in your own truth and say, I would rather be alone than with someone who does not want to be here. That's not just strength, it's wisdom, maturity, and self-love in its highest form. Transforming hurt into power is one of the most profound and necessary acts you will ever undertake, because pain is inevitable in life, but suffering is often prolonged by our refusal to learn from it. When someone leaves you and you choose not to fight for them, you will inevitably feel pain, sharp, raw, and uninvited. It is normal to feel rejected, abandoned, even humiliated in the privacy of your own thoughts. You might question your worth, replay every moment looking for what you did wrong, and feel the sting of their absence in your daily routines. But there comes a point when you have to decide what that pain will mean for you. Will it be a lifelong wound you keep pressing, or will it become the foundation of your strength, clarity, and evolution? Transforming hurt into power starts with refusing to see rejection as proof of inadequacy. When someone walks away, it's easy to believe it's because you weren't enough, not attractive enough, not interesting enough, not loving enough. But their decision to leave says more about them than it does about you. It reveals their readiness, their capacity to love, their alignment with your values and vision for the future. It is not a final judgment on your worth as a human being. Recognizing this is critical, because if you internalize their leaving as evidence that you are unlovable, you hand them the power to define your self-esteem. You let their absence poison the way you see yourself. Instead, when you transform hurt into power, you reinterpret the event. You see their departure as an act of alignment. They left because they could not or would not meet you at the level you desire and deserve. Their leaving creates space for something better, even if you can't see it yet. It forces you to confront your own patterns, your own fears, and your own tendency to accept less than you need just to avoid being alone. Pain, when faced honestly, is a ruthless but effective teacher. It holds up a mirror and says, "This is what you tolerated. This is where you betrayed yourself. This is the gap between what you say you want and what you choose." Transforming hurt into power also means refusing to become bitter or closed. It is tempting when someone hurts you to respond with cynicism, to declare that love isn't real, that people can't be trusted, that vulnerability is weakness. But bitterness is just another form of self-imprisonment. It doesn't protect you, it isolates you. It keeps you replaying the hurt over and over, confirming your worst fears about people and about yourself. To transform hurt into power, you must remain open, even if that feels impossible. You must say, "This hurt me deeply, but I will not let it harden me. I will not let one person's choice make me distrust the possibility of love itself." That stance is not naive. It is the ultimate form of courage. You also transform hurt into power by investing in yourself. Instead of chasing someone who left, the energy you might have spent fighting for them, explaining yourself, trying to prove your worth, you redirect all of it inward. You use it to heal your wounds, to reinforce your boundaries, to discover the parts of you that you lost while trying to keep them. You build a life so full, so aligned with your true values, that anyone who cannot respect you simply can't fit there anymore. Your time alone is not empty space. It is sacred ground where you cultivate the version of yourself who would never beg for love again. Another critical part of transforming hurt into power is learning emotional regulation. Rejection and heartbreak create chaos in the mind and body. Your thoughts race, your heart aches, your stomach knots with anxiety. It is easy to react impulsively, sending one more message, asking for one more conversation, trying to keep the door open just in case. But power lies in restraint, in learning to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it, in breathing through the panic, in telling yourself, "I can survive this." Every time you resist the urge to seek validation from them, you strengthen your emotional muscles. You prove to yourself that you don't need them to soothe you, that you can soothe yourself. Transforming hurt into power also means finding meaning in the pain, not in a way that blames you for their choices, but in a way that allows you to extract wisdom from the experience. You ask, "What did I learn about myself, about my needs, my boundaries, my fears? about the kind of love I want to give and receive. You use the pain as raw material for your growth. You don't sugarcoat it or rush to move on before you're ready. You sit with it long enough to understand it. Then you let it fuel your transformation. Finally, to turn hurt into power is to reclaim your narrative. Instead of telling yourself the story of how you were left, abandoned, or rejected, you tell the story of how you chose yourself when someone else would not, how you refused to fight for someone's presence at the cost of your own peace, how you stood in your dignity even when it was the lonelier path. That story is not one of loss, but of triumph. It is the story of someone who knows their worth so deeply, they would rather face the ache of absence than the insult of staying where they're not valued.